So, welcome everyone to Nature Awaits, empowering families to get outdoors. My name is Sarah Coles, and I am the Executive Director of Texas Children in Nature Network, and we are excited to have you with us today. We are recording our session today. Thank you so much for joining us. To save bandwidth for our attendees and for a clean recording, we ask everyone to turn off their computers and mute themselves during the presentation. There will be some time where we will have some conversation, and when that happens, we will have y'all unmute, or you can put stuff in the chat. Um, and I will be monitoring the chat, and so if you have any questions, you can put them there, and I'll try to answer or share them with our presenters. Please remember to keep the comments in the chat kind. Melody Alcazar is running tech for us today. Thank you so much, Melody. As I said, we're
Hmm.
recording, and I will share the recording in a follow-up email. If you're uncomfortable with your name showing, you can change it to anonymous and then private message Melody with your name for our attendance. Also, if your Zoom name doesn't match the name you registered with, please change your name or let me know. If you're in need of a certificate and we don't have your name, we will not be able to provide a certificate. And just as a reminder, if you're needing a certificate, go ahead and follow the directions that are in the email that you got this Zoom link in. I'm going to go ahead and do our land acknowledgement. Texas Children in Nature Network is headquartered in Austin, and as such, I'm on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Comanche, and Sauna people. Our ongoing colonial presence on Indigenous lands compels us to take action now to counteract the effects of colonization. The work we do through the Texas Children in Nature Network is one small step towards that effort. And in just a minute, I'm going to put a few chat links in the chat about land acknowledgements and about those people groups. And now I'd like to go ahead and welcome Kristy Rangel. She's an independent contractor who's worked for years within early childhood, and she's going to be talking with us today. Thank you so much, Kristy.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. And definitely, Sarah, keep me posted on the chat if people have
Will do.
things during the time. There. So welcome everybody that's joining us at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday. I'm grateful for
Kristy,
you to take,
real quick, sorry, we're seeing your screen, but not the presentation view.
not the presentation view. Okay, I'll stop here. Um, let's try again.
Okay, I was going to say this worked a minute ago.
Yeah, it did. But heck. All right, let's try again.
Perfect.
Yep, we're good.
We are good.
Great. So, anyways, thank you so much for taking some time out to join us today to talk about this, about empowering families to get outdoors. As Sarah said, I am Kristy Rangel. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, always have been. And I have a long history in the early childhood space, but recently have stepped out of that and am now working with young adults and people who work with young adults on developing self-awareness life skills and also working on leadership programs for women so that they can work on developing their leadership influence and skills while also not sacrificing families and values and things like that. And both of these life coaching opportunities I do outdoors as much as possible. But for not only loving nature, but because nature is our teacher and nature is essential health care. So I think if you're just joining us, as Sarah had mentioned, putting your name in the chat and where you're from, and I would like to check on names as well as we do that. Um, so our plan for this webinar is just kind of starting with why are families not going outside and talking about nature as healthcare and accessibility is always a big item in question and identifying the contradictions to the vision of why your families aren't going outside and then just kind of summarizing it all up with some tips around young children, families with young children, because it's a special time, and just some dialogue with you all about that. starting with this why do families not go outside question. This question actually became a thing for me when I attended the Texas Children and Nature Network Summit in 2021. I went to a session where the presenters were talking about this amazing outdoor space that they had constructed, the funding that had gone into it, everything that it had, a dream space, and the families still weren't utilizing it. And the perplexity that they had with that. And for me too, it was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, if they have it, the movie, right? Like the Field of Dreams, if it's there, they'll come, kind of thought. And so literally since attending the summit in 2021 and happening upon that session, it has been something that I have read books about and researched, done my own research, surveyed families, done all these things. It really created this little itch in me to figure out what is holding our families back from going outdoors when it used to be such a big part of our lives. And the farther back you go in history, it was just our lives. And really, out of all the things that I'm seeing, and just pulling it together and to summarize it, I keep categorizing things because I'm just like super big fan of the inductive thinking method here. And it keeps falling into these four categories in my findings. First of all, being preparation and planning. So many families and people we talk to say it takes more time. It takes more effort to go outside. I have to plan times three was a direct quote one time because I need sunscreen and I need bug spray and I need to have the right clothes and they need to have the right shoes and I need to get in the car and go there and figure out how long it's going to take and when to go with nap time. And then even just some over controlling that is, creeping its way into parenting right now sometimes. Not gonna lie, just recently there was a complaint made to my HOA in my own neighborhood about the owls hooting. So we're really wanting to over control this nature sometimes and what's happening, and that is just not possible. At least in my neighborhood, the owls are not listening to the HOA and changing their hooting. But these are some of the things like that have just keep coming up about preparation and planning. Uh, another common uh, topic that is referenced a lot is time in various forms. We live in a hustle culture, it's said, and there's just no time for taking this time out and to be out in nature. We're full of scheduled activities, and the scheduled activities don't leave a window for going out into this unstructured time out in nature. Perhaps just access. Once again, time can be related to access. Um, Going back to, even though that's one of our first responses, there's not enough access. It often wasn't what came from the families' mouths themselves when we were doing some surveys, but the time to get to an accessible place did influence them if they had to drive somewhere, if it wasn't readily available. So that factored into time. And even some things that, like, maybe this would go with preparation and planning too, but just like my child getting sweaty and dirty, but we have to go somewhere later and I don't have time to give them a bath or to clean them up, could sometimes fall into that category. Another one is weather. Something else, hot, too hot. If San Antonio, probably my Austin friends on here can relate. Like we get hot, hot, hot. But Texas is a big state and parts of us are humid all the time. Some of us are dry. There's a variety of weather. But weather, things that I also included under weather involves air quality. To be honest, sometimes they come on the news and they tell you don't go outside because the air quality is bad. So I kind of lump that under weather and also allergies. As they change with the seasons and the weather or windy days and things like that, allergens comes up often. Families bring that up. And lastly, just fear, lack of knowledge of, if you grew up in an urban area and weren't going outside a lot, uh, or if you have fears of insects or, other things that can really impact it. But a lot of that just goes around a lack of knowledge. Uh, I have a direct quote from a parent that was in San Diego, And hers was kind of related to fear in here. And I'm just going to read this quote that she said. She said, I found a group called Family Adventures in Nature. Joining them made me, as a single mom, feel more confident about taking my child out to places I'd never been, whether it was for hiking or camping or whatever. I would have felt not experienced enough at first to go camping with her on my own, but knowing there were group members all around if I needed something gave me courage. After going with them multiple times, I even felt confident enough to go on my own. Also, having someone else set the location, date, and time got me to commit to hikes in places I'd never even heard of. Meeting like-minded families to go with was very encouraging and all added up to me even planning some of the events myself. Like, what a lovely testimony, which is why I wanted to read that to you. That at the end of the day, some people, just like us on this webinar, step forward and help bring that together to be that support, to encourage someone past that fear response. Um, And I already know that our audience here today, you don't need convincing. Like, I don't have to spend time talking about the benefits of why we want our families to go out in nature because you wouldn't have received a link to this webinar to have done that. So I don't want to convince you about that. But I do just want to say, I just want to summarize in general what you all know and what I just feel is the most important piece about it. And the reason we want families utilizing our outdoors is because nature is healthcare. Bottom line, it affects us physically, mentally, and spiritually. Our moods can be influenced by nature. Our blood pressure can be changed by nature. Our immune system can be changed. Just our calming response, our sense of well-being, all of that is impacted when we're out in nature. And so I just really want to encourage us. I want to encourage the network to be those ones. And that's why you're here. That's why you joined. And we're just all looking for ways to do that. So going to what we come in sight is potentially this isn't happening because they don't have access. It is true that 80% of Americans live in urban areas. That's absolutely true. And these areas vary on their accessibility of access to nature. And it can be very limited. And frequent access to parks and green spaces isn't always there. But because you all come from all over the state, and I don't know your area, and I don't want to just speak to San Antonio because we have our unique um, things that impact us. I just wanted to talk about some really easy, simple ways of starting small, taking those baby steps to helping families get past to those four issues of planning and preparation, fear, time, um, and potentially weather, and talk about how we can start small with some of these little obstacles. And they don't require a lot in terms of that. So I'm going to start with birdsong. So a very going back to being that person and that invites a family, invites some children, invites a parent to start just enjoying what we have to offer out in nature. One of the easiest things to do is just to have them stop and quiet and listen to some birdsong and finding the calm and that brings and just that time out. And so just to give you an opportunity in the middle of a Wednesday, in the middle of the week, I'm going to play for just a few moments, some birdsong for you to close your eyes and just take this moment, this time out during your day to breathe and hear that. And also, Kristy, there it is. All right. every time I've played this video in preparation for today's presentation, my cats will wake up from a sound sleep to see what's going on. So that must be some very, very good audio on bird sounds and songs. But going back to what can that look like? Going back to there's not a lot of planning or preparation to stop and listen for bird song. There's not, it doesn't take a lot of time. Hopefully, there's not a lot of fear. I mean, I do have a daughter who's afraid of birds, but I think even I could get her to stop and listen. And you can start with the indoors, like listening to some inside and then going outside and seeing if you can hear those same sounds. Some very simple things. Um, Another thing, stream or rain sounds. There is research that shows that listening to water, I don't know about you all, and you have your cameras off, so this is why I like presenting in person so I can see your face. But I know for me that if I go and sit by water, like that is my calming, happy spot, right? And turns out there's research that actually explains that because the sound of water, streams, waterfalls, rain, all of that actually stimulates your vagus nerve, which interacts with that whole bundle of nerves throughout your body, and it helps you calm and regulate your stress response. So it's not just Kristy's happy place. It's not just what works for me. It actually works on the human body because nature is our healthcare. So take a moment to listen to some streams and let's get everybody in their well-being space. So nice. I wish I was really there. Flowers. Flowers, once again, something that we can have inside, outside, without a big commitment, time prep. Uh, Flowers give off fragrances, right? There's chemicals in those fragrances that calm the stress response in people. I thought it was very interesting as I was learning some of the effects of the fragrance of flowers on people that I was like, that's why they always show people bringing flowers to their partner after a fight or to apologize. You bring flowers because it's gonna like calm them down. It's great. And you don't have to say calm down. You just give them the flowers. But also, you know what? The patterns and the fractal unfolding of petals helps us with like finding that sense of calm and beauty. Those of you who like to see organized order of things, just looking at those flowers and seeing that creation and how they're made that way can have a powerful response on the human mind, body, spirit. So, all that to say, these are things like I'm saying you could begin inside and slowly move to the outside, taking those baby steps. Like we don't have to, encourage a family to get in and go on an overnight camping trip already and stay in a tent. We can really start small, being that supportive friend, encourager that comes alongside families and does that. There's research out of Japan. I've been finding a lot out of Japan actually, that even watching documentaries of highly curated nature, any planet Earth fans out there, that it actually deactivates your amygdala, which, is that sends off our fight or flight response. That's the stress region of your brain. So even watching on TV, on screen, watching nature can calm our nervous system and help us in the stress response category. It really makes me think, reflecting on my time and years in the education world of It reminds me when I was a school administrator having an aquarium in my office, and sometimes when kids came in like highly like dysregulated, how I would say like, "Can you find my African frog in there?" And how like just looking in the fish tank would calm them. And what could we be doing if we could really start integrating more nature into our schools? And kudos to all of you who are creating nature-based education programs because like it's here, it's healthcare, it's what we need. They're saying that this research that I was telling you out of Japan about just even watching nature and the effects that it had on us, they said it's as showing the results are showing it's as effective as meditation or yoga, which often if you ask people are like, what are some things we do to calm down? They'll say meditation, I meditate, or yoga. Watching nature can do the same. So also when you turn on your computer and Microsoft likes to give you that beautiful picture that you've never seen of nature, I think like they're trying to help you in your workspace. Thank you, Microsoft. So I'm going to give you a little brain break because I've been doing a lot of the talking. Um, Sarah, I'll let you, if you'll monitor the chat. The brain break question is, how many of our most populated cities in the US are home to a national park? Why don't you drop your guesses in the chat? And Sarah, if you would read them out, that would be great.
I will. I'm gonna give my guess. Well, Emmy says three, and my guess is 10. Sophia says 20, and Elizabeth says 6. Maddie has 5.
Y'all are gonna love this. You're gonna be
Cynthia is
surprised.
13.
Y'all ready? 40. 40, 40 of the 50 most populated metropolitan areas in the United States have national parks. More than one-third of those national parks are located in urban areas. For example, the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, a very urban area, but that is one of our national parks. The Golden Gate in San Francisco, also a national park. How about that? There's your little trivia break. Surprised? I bet. So yard work, yay! You came to a nature seminar and Kristy has a slide that says yard work on here. Well, I told you that there's a lot coming out of Japan and because of that, I incorporated a lot of what I learned in their culmination of research on the effects, the essential healthcare effects of nature. And there is a researcher who's also a Buddhist. His name is Matsumoto. And he talked about the tradition in Japan around raking and sweeping, that for centuries that has been something that they do for a calming, regulating thing. But he teaches people to get back to that and how like just being aware while you're doing it, like being aware of your breath, like slowing down, thinking about what you're doing to make something clean as you rake up those leaves, as you sweep off the dirt off the patio, all of those things. Having that sense of cleaning your environment also actually has an impact of like cleaning your mind and clearing your mind. And this would be another way that we can encourage families as we're out there. They may be doing their yard work. And yard work may look like their balcony on their apartment, but still like just explaining to them how it affects us, things that it does and make us feel better about the world. It's a very contemplative. The Japanese research says that raking and sweeping are very contemplative. I added on, not from the Japanese research, from Kristy Rangel, pulling weeds. Um, last semester, well, actually last fall, so it's been a year, I embarked on my Master Gardener coursework to become a certified Master Gardener. And during one of the classes, talking about soil, I was fascinated to find out that the pharmaceutical companies, a couple of our large pharmaceutical companies here in the U.S., are working with Texas A&M at College Station because there are enzymes and microbes and all these things in the dirt that serve and work like an antidepressant. And the pharmaceutical companies want Texas A&M at College Station to figure out how to extract these things out of the soil so that they can make a pill for us. And even my A&M professor who was teaching the class was like, they're missing the point. Get out and play in the dirt. Uh, get out and play in the dirt. And so I went how I was connecting that was pulling weeds has become a very contemplative activity for me. When I find myself very stressed, going out and my yard is more than happy to provide to provide weeds, pulling weeds. It does create that sense of cleaning. It does provide that sense of like feeling like, a lot of things are out of my control right now, but I'm controlling. I can control this. I can clear this space. Um, it's just fascinating. And right, just part of all of this is um like the fear of the unknown and things like that is just sharing this information with families and parents or even the children themselves and helping them see how they can take these easy steps or even in things that they might already be doing. Another thing that almost everybody, whether they're a nature person or not, is really good at because we all have phones with our storage full of photos at all time, but is taking pictures. We know that taking photos is a powerful piece of awe for us, right? Like the beauty of nature. People have been doing that forever. Doing landscape painting, taking photographies. There's some taking photography out in nature. Like all of those things has been happening for so long, right? And the scientific literature on this concept of savoring really relates back to the photography. Like a lot of times we take photos of things we want to remember that we want to savor. And savoring does create a mindset that is very strongly correlated with well-being. And so one of the things that we can do is encourage our families to take pictures and to come back to those memories and savor them, right? But we want to be judicious about pulling out the phone. And so one of the things, an easy tip is just like, let's go with the direct experience first for as long as possible, and then maybe take some of those savoring photos towards the end of our outside experience. Um, but savoring is really important to our well-being. That's why we enjoy listening to music or sitting out on a patio with a friend with a glass of wine or things like that. Those experiences are really special for us. So, another brain break. Um, take out your phone. You probably have it close by. And I'd like you to just open up your photos for a moment and I'm going to give you a minute or so to just kind of scroll through and look for some photos that you captured of things that you wanted to savor. This would probably be why I have 11,000 pictures of my cat sleeping. I don't know why I need to savor that often, but I do. Um, but look for some photos of some times that you were outside in nature that you wanted to savor, and then maybe we can share what some of those pieces are. But for right now, just look, and then when we come back, we'll talk about it. I'm actually going to share my own, right? Like the privilege of being the presenter and knew what the question was going to be. But I truly, even though the assignment I gave you was to look for some times that you took photos to savor nature, like truly, when I just looked back over this past summer, these photos are the ones that I would have picked even without saying out in nature. And it just so happens they correlate, right? Because that goes with our commonality that we all have on this, that if you're on this webinar, is that we are such lovers of nature. But there's a photo of my sons sitting in the snow up in the Rocky Mountains in shorts. Like there's that. We hiked a good long while to get to the top of a mountain in the Rocky Mountains where there's a lake that one of my sons wanted to find, and it was such a moment. So I love that moment, and I just love the fact that you see all the snow, and then they're also in shorts, and we were fine. The second photo is me and my husband after we walked the top of the Manitou Incline. If you're familiar with it, it's it's a long, steep climb of stairs. You can see how tiny the bottom is there. Don't have to do that again. I don't have to do that again. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of me for doing it, but it was hard. And then the third photo is a picture of my daughter, who was snorkeling, and that one is particularly special to me because she had just gone through, she's in her early 20s, just gone through a really difficult first breakup, um, and was just really had a hurting heart. And she traveled by herself to Puerto Rico and did things like this. And when she sent that photo of her snorkeling, which is something I've never done, my heart just felt, I didn't even know the words for what I felt. But yeah, like that's why I savor that photo. And I think it means a lot to me because she was outdoors and it just like feeling nature, right? Going back to nature is healthcare. Would anyone be willing to share with us like what your photo was? Or if you had it on your computer, you could also share. Maybe I could, I'm not sure if we may don't have sharing capability for everybody to share, but would anybody willing to either share out loud or in the chat about what their photo was or photos?
Cynthia put squirrels, my cats, and chrysanthemums, and Carolyn put some sunsets.
Oh, I love sunsets.
Wendy put the fire pit on Halloween.
Oh, fun.
For me, my home screen is a sunset in Yellowstone. And so like just every time I open my phone, I have a moment of calm.
Back at Yellowstone. I love
Yeah.
that.
Cynthia said, loved your photos in the associated commentary.
Mm.
Melody put my kids trick-or-treating, a trip to the Redwoods with my mom and my for my birthday and my dog. And then Monica has hiking at Lost Maples with my husband, and my husband walking with our fur babies, checking on our plants and trees.
Gosh, without seeing them, I have images in my mind just in those descriptors. I love that. Thank y'all so much for sharing. So even something like this that our families are comfortable taking photos with their phones, but encouraging them like, going out. We don't have to be professional photographers ourselves to use that as a vehicle, an avenue for getting families to step out with us and let's go experience some nature. Like, let's go listen to those bird sounds and try to capture some photos of them. Or, let's go listen to the water and take some video of it so that we can listen to it again and savor how it made us feel. And, it can just be, well, going back to like I was telling you my new job, like talking about things like talk about, like I'm happy to give everybody all the like, and science says, but it doesn't even have to be that way. You can just say, how do you feel right now? And people will, I feel relaxed, and just be like, you can go back to this relaxed feeling anytime you listen to this video that you've just captured and saved, or anytime you step out of your office or your home and you come here, like taking your family out. If you're having one of those crazy days, like, but you have an opportunity to just do one of these like simple little things, it can change the way we feel. Um, even going around an apartment and looking for photos, like let's go take photos of everything that we can find that's natural, that is also the color, blue or green, or um, just little steps with someone next to you. I am like a huge proponent right now of everybody's like AI is taking over everything and nobody's gonna have any jobs. And I am like, I'm those of you who are here, those of you who love nature know that nothing is AI is never going to replace nature. It's not going to have those effects on us, and it's not going to replace our need for social connection and of just being that very present person around people. So I know we're all here because, and most of you here have jobs in and related to nature, or you do your job like me outdoors in nature, right? We're here for that reason, and we want that for so many, but it's not happening. And we talked about what are the things getting in the way, the planning, the prep, the weather, the fears. And so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time. One of the other things that I also do is facilitate strategic planning for people who are looking to get projects going. And one of the things that I get the most excited about, that 9 times out of 10 the clients are not excited about, is talking about what's going to block us from achieving our vision. We get really excited about what we want to see, and we don't want to address the things that keep us from getting to that vision that we want to see. And that's where the real work needs to lie. If it was as simple as creating the vision and then just building it out, everybody would be achieving these dreams left and right. But unfortunately, there are so many contradictions that get in our way of re reaching that vision dream of what we want to see, that we don't adequately plan for what those contradictions are. And like one of my old mentors said, the person with a plan wins. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Like, what is blocking us from seeing more families going outdoors? These, the reason I chose a picture of a water hose here is it's basically just a metaphor for us about like the kink in the hose here. If you're out working in your garden and you're watering the plants and suddenly the water stops coming, you don't just start yelling at the hose and saying like, there's no water. You turn around and look, like thinking of myself right now, you turn around and look and find where is the kink in the hose, or did somebody turn it off, or is someone stepping on it right now and blocking the flow of the water? Like, it's not that there's no water, it's just that there's something blocking the water from moving through. And that's the way I like to explain to people about what these contradictions are. It's not that we don't have families, and it's not that nature isn't out there. It's what are these things that are blocking the families from going out and experiencing this nature as healthcare. Um, so these obstacles, these contradictions, they exist in relationship to what that vision is. And you only see those obstacles when you have an alternative to what currently exists. Now, I will say during COVID, during 2020, it was one of the more beautiful things, when so much of it was so hard, was the fact that every time I looked outside, families were outside and walking because we didn't have anywhere to go or anything else to do. So when a lot of the evidence that's come up about what's blocking them from going outside is time, hustle culture, planning preparation, it makes sense, right? When all of that was taken away from us during COVID, we got outside. People were getting outside and experiencing all that that had for them. particularly around healthcare, for their mental health, for their physical health, for their spiritual side, everything. Families were getting outdoors. Um, but I just even knowing what those contradictions are, right? I'm going to treat someone turning off the water to the hose differently than I'm going to treat a kink in the hose or someone stepping on it. So we have to identify them, and that's the first step, right? Now, what these contradictions are not, they're not problems per se, but they are blocks. Like problems are things that you fix, but you cannot always fix the underlying contradictions. Um, so, for example, weather. I can't fix the weather or allergens and things like that. So it's how do I respond to the impact of that contradiction, or how do I go around it, or because it's blocking my way forward. If it's the heat, if it's allergens or whatever, what do I need to do to overcome that obstacle? Um, Another thing when I'm working with people on these projects is that we're always really quick to say what we don't have a lot of. Right? It seems like every project I work with, one of the things is like we don't have enough money, lack of funding. But is it really lack of funding, or is it that we're dependent on a single funding source? If lack of funding is the real obstacle, then maybe, right, then the solution is finding more funding sources. Um, so I do encourage people to not think about what do we have a lack of, but more to look at some of those other things. And these contradictions, like once you say them, they seem more evident. You see them more, but they're really like cataracts in your eyes. Like you can't necessarily look at someone and see that they have a cataract, or you don't see it yourself directly, but it is clouding your vision. And over time, it does blind you to what is there. And I would say that some of these contradictions, that's how they work in the achievement of our projects. So in whatever workplace that you are at and whatever you're trying to achieve, I encourage you, even though it's not like our initial response is it's not fun. If you actually get into it and see that when you identify those things and you make a plan for uh, going around or over or under that block, it actually does make you more enthusiastic and excited, like I get about them, because I see making those plans, getting those out of the way, I'm going to get to my vision. And in our case, it was, really working around trying to get our indoor families that are so inside, getting them outside. Um, so this is going to transition us to a more of a discussion uh, side of this webinar. And I'll kind of start with like the first one that we talked about, where a lot of the things that families share, it's around like planning and preparation. It takes so much time. I have to gather so many things. Um, and all of that. We've all seen this scenario 100 times. There's that precious mad little girl right there. Um, it just really makes me think about, I really notice this, and probably now I'm going to put the thought in your head and you're going to notice it too. But when you go somewhere where people have spent hundreds, more like thousands of dollars to say the happiest place on earth, Disney, and you see the angry parents dragging the screaming, crying child, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like you spent all this money, and is this really the happiest place on earth when everybody's miserable, right? Like, it just makes me so sad. But right, that actually the it's not that Disney. It's not that Disney causes tantrums. It's maybe some lack of planning and preparation, although I'm sure there's always a great deal that goes into planning a vacation, packing, choosing hotels, getting flights, rental cars, all of that. We don't take the time to actually plan about what about when we get there. Um, and often families might cite like, I don't want to take my child because when they're having a tantrum, when they're having a fit, like that's a lot to deal with away, out in the middle of nowhere. So let's talk about it. You can put responses in the chat or you can unmute yourselves and we can just talk about it. But like, what are some of the underlying contradictions when it comes to taking kids outdoors when it comes to planning and preparation, and perhaps like just narrowing it down to how do we prevent these tantrums from happening? Like, what are your suggestions?
I know when I'm taking my niece and nephews out, often it's making sure that I am prepared with snacks and water, because a lot of the times a tantrum can be relieved by a graham cracker.
For humans of all ages. Snacks, huge. Water, huge. Oh my gosh. Every field trip I was ever on, like in the first 10 minutes, kids will say, I'm hungry.
Melody has, it's often more about leaving my expectations around timing behind. I may be finished after an hour, but they could go for 3.
Hmm. Or vice versa. I do think, using the Disney story, like parents are like, I just paid $1,000 to be here and we're going to get every minute of it that we can. And yeah, that doesn't work with little feet and little biology and all of that. It's expectations both ways. Different staminas, right? Like different, just yeah, different staminas, different abilities, all of those things. Other ideas?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I've experienced a lot with like just the energy and stamina and like taking into account for each kid because I used to be a camp counselor and there's so much walking and I feel like a lot of kids were not ready for that and it was really hard to get them prepared for that when they had never really walked that far in their day-to-day life, you know. So definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Gosh, right? Like that's such a great point. And why, it's so important to just start encouraging these families with the tiniest, smallest little steps. Because if we go straight to meet us at the park and we're going to go on this hike up Old Baldy at Garner State Park, like if they're not used to hiking and climbing, like just the physical, it could take a lot out of you and it could cause a lot and just leave you like, oh, I don't want to do that again. Um, so it's kind of just an encouragement for you as in whatever capacity you're in and whatever role that you're playing is like, how can I take this wonderful, like, here's the big experience I want them to have, but how can I break it down into these smaller steps and just let them build up their abilities, their desires, their tolerance to do these bigger experiences for bigger impact. How about weather strategies. And remember, weather could also, besides hot and cold, can also be, and rain can also be allergens, air quality. What are some of the root causes of contradictions that happen there? So, for example, I will tell you, surveys from San Antonio families were like, it's too hot. I don't take my family outside because it's too hot. So how do we work with that being the contradiction that's keeping them away?
I think when we're working with schools, often the thought process in terms of timing during the day for school is like a 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock recess. But in Texas, a 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock recess for 9/10 of the year is miserable. So thinking about timing and when recess is and when the sun is going to be at its worst.
Absolutely. You can bake cookies on your dashboard at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're putting kids out there and baking them on the playground. I think clothing, like clothing is, a piece that we can talk about here too. And just having supplies packed. And I think that goes with planning and preparation too. I do feel like from the comment from the parent in San Diego that I read you earlier, and culling through all of these responses to all of these obstacles that families talked about, that like a really helpful piece um, as you're coming alongside families and encouraging them to get out is like creating with one of those little drawstring. So many of us give away like those drawstring bags as like, a goodie bag for attending something, but like helping them create one that could just stay stocked, that has the mini sunscreen, the mini insect repellent, a reminder about like, or like a card with like healthy snacks, like an idea for some good snacks to put in there, a reminder to bring the water, the water bottles, but just having all, eliminating some of the preparation time by having a bag that's ready, teaching them how to have a ready bag, or if you are in the role of guiding, just having everything showing an organization method. So many of us are very gifted organizers, but not all of us are, right? And so you gifted organizers, finding ways to plan and prep for outdoor and sharing these with your colleagues, like those of us on this webinar, and then also with your families. Is a huge gift. It's a huge gift. You're teaching us something that maybe doesn't come naturally for others in this group or our families. Don't take it for granted, those of you who are super uber organizers, that we can all just think of this ourselves, like really and truly, like we're all given different gifts. And I think that that would be a huge help. And then just also with the strategies, like I said, like uh, and clothing. And I know I see, a lot of times, when you see the Captain America child at the grocery store, or, the Princess Mermaid at church or whatever, and parents are like, I've got to pick and choose my battles. 100%, you most certainly do. But if you're going on a hike, you're going out in nature, and they're wanting to wear the full costume, like in this case, you do have to pick your battles, and you might want to go ahead and pick your battle, because if you don't, get them in the right clothes, or at least have that change of clothes ready, right? It's going to tank your whole trip. So, um, that's just an important piece around this, is like looking at, and I think like after basically 4 years of looking at that and just finding time and time again, everything categorizes under these four categories so often that this is it's a great place for us to work with your own organization or your own team, or your own region, or however, of like, what are these contradictions around these four topics, and how can we help families overcome them, and have a plan so that we get closer to our vision of getting more families outside. And also just reminding yourself on the daily that the number one thing is you yourself, and that personal connection. So I feel like we pretty much, you all like shared some of these general tips to remember. And these are in regards to early childhood, because like I said, early childhood is its own little animal. But introducing nature gradually in small steps. Be willing to stop and take a break, even if you don't want to, or stop the experience, even if you don't want to as the adult, but just be willing to just know ahead of time. And somebody said earlier, managing expectations, just acknowledge for yourself that you may have to leave. And and just come to an acceptance of that, like going to Disney and just being like, okay, I know I don't want to, and I want to get every minute, but I may just have to leave after lunch for a while and go back. Um, it's really important with young children, involving them in the planning. They can get really, if you're really enthusiastic, they can get really enthusiastic. So I've always encouraged them to do that. But also, young children really need to know what the plan is, what the agenda is, and what to expect. And I think sometimes, like so often, like, let's get in the car, we're going to the park. But we don't set expectations for them. And, if I told all of y'all, hey, come with me, we're going on a cruise. I mean, maybe some of y'all would be like, Yes, great. But you kind of might want to know where we're going. What do you need to bring? How many days are we going to be on this cruise that you're inviting us to, Kristy? Like, there's things that our brains need to know. And if we don't have those resolved, it creates a certain level of anxiety of the unknown. And we often, one of the big things I see with teachers in classrooms and with parents and children is just not laying out those expectations of what the children can expect to see happening. Their little brains are not able to infer and draw conclusions like we do about what going to the park looks like. And so really helping families if you're coming alongside a family of this is what you can expect and making sure and modeling for them, perhaps talking to the younger children about what they can expect, right? Um, we'll go way further than you may expect in getting children on board and eliminating some of those tantrums. And then just those little non-negotiables there about packing hydration and snacks, non-negotiable. Don't forget hygiene and comfort items and the clothing choice that I mentioned before. And that pretty much concludes what was looking forward to sharing with you today. Just reconnecting with Sarah and the Texas Children in Nature Network and like-minded people that have these same desires. In the couple of minutes we have left, does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask or talk about?
As we get questions in the chat, we do have a comment from Cynthia. She says, outstanding presentation, informative, interesting, inspiring, and beyond amazing. Thank you for sharing all this information, ideas, strategies, and more. I look forward to receiving the slides so I can share with my colleagues. And your advice to start small is brilliant in so many ways, in so many levels. And your general tips to remember are excellent. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I'm that thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
And then Sophia says, are there any resources for child care centers that you recommend?
Yes. I do have some. Sarah, I would think it would probably be best if I like emailed you some resources for child care centers for that. And
Of course.
then maybe you could send that out with the because you're going to send out like the slides and stuff, right?
Yes, I will. And then also, if Sophia, if you're not already a member of our Pathfinders,
Mhm.
I highly recommend you joining our Pathfinder network for Texas Children in Nature Network. It's specifically for early child care centers. I put the link on how to join uh, right under your question.
Yes, yes, that's such a valuable resource right there. Um, and then as soon as we get off of here, I will pull up a little list of like some of my go-tos and I'll send them to you, Sarah, so you can send it out with the other information.
Perfect. And then as we're finishing up, I did put an evaluation in the chat, so if y'all wouldn't mind filling that out. Our next webinar is Lessons from the Three Sisters Garden, so we'd love to see y'all there. And then lots of thank yous coming in.
Oh,
So,
great. Well, no, thank y'all. Thank y'all. I mean, it's a Wednesday afternoon and you guys are busy and working and you took some time out to meet us here. So thank you and just really grateful.
and just a reminder for those of you that are left, Summit is in just a couple weeks. So if you haven't registered for the summit yet, we would love to see y'all there. And Kristy, thank you for presenting today. We really appreciate it. And everyone have a fantastic rest of your day.
All righty. Take care, everyone.